So if you came to this channel from my previous few videos, you might be surprised by this jump in topics. After all, my two Pokemon videos have gotten a lot more success than anything I've uploaded in the past, so why am I not making a logical follow-up? Well, the thing is, I don't just like Pokemon. I'm a guy who's invested in multiple game fandoms, and that's why this next video is on Sonic the Hedgehog. Besides, my first fan art Speedpaint on the channel was Pokemon and my second was Sonic. It's the natural order. Anyway, one of the many things about the Sonic series that gets me hooked would be the characters. And as an artist, I've no doubt drawn a fair share of fan art over the years. And that includes fan art where I turn the characters into humans. I'm sure you're aware of this trend, since humanizing non-human characters is a pretty common thing for artists to do. Such creations are often known as gijinkas, from a Japanese word meaning personification. Now, the reasons why people make gijinkas do vary, but in my case, it's mostly because I find humans fun to design, and I guess because I find them a lot easier to draw than animals. But the thing is, I don't make gijinkas often. I've only really done it for Sonic. Now, I have been meaning to make some Kirby gijinkas, but that'd have to wait for another video. So since gijinka drawing is so common, it should be no surprise that a lot of artists have done this before. But the way I see it, gijinkas are kind of a reflection of the person who drew them, like a window into their style and preferences and stuff. I've seen several Twitter artists I love who have their own human Sonic designs, and it just goes to show that there's no right way to translate these characters into humans. It's all a matter of what kind of design elements you like personally. And that's exactly what this video is. I figured this would be a neat way for me to show my character design process for original human characters, since I haven't done anything like that yet. Well, aside from my avatar, but he's a bit different. While I do have plenty of OCs, I'm thinking of saving OC videos for a bit later, when I have a more consistent viewer base. But until then, I think that talking about something more familiar would make for a more natural bridge to talk about my character design. But anyway, I think this opening spiel's gone on for long enough, so let's get started! Alright, so let's begin this video with Sonic's human design. This is a Gijinka that I've had for the longest, and definitely the one that I've drawn the most. He's also gone through quite a few design changes. My first human Sonic dates back to February 2021, and it wasn't great. In August I gave him a redesign. He definitely looked better, but he was still pretty lacking in character. It was in October that I gave him another redesign, and, well, there's a reason I've stuck to this ever since. Now, that being said, I did remake and repurpose the old design for Classic Sonic a year later, but we're only doing the modern design here, so back on topic. Now, Sonic's a high-energy guy who can't stand still, right? The guy totally has ADHD, and I love him for it. When it comes to clothing, you generally want the outfit to portray your character's personality or behaviour. That's just good character design. You want your audience to be able to tell what they're like at a glance. And with a personality like Sonic's, I think there's two ways to go about it. On one hand, giving him looser clothes gives more freedom of movement, and it's also more comfortable, which I think is a good fit for this guy. As much as I think Sonic looks great in a suit, I'm not sure he'd be super comfortable in it. Maybe that's why he never wears trousers. Though on the other hand, I also get why someone like Sonic would want to wear something more form-fitting. It has the appeal of a sleeker silhouette, and it makes you more streamlined to run even faster. I've seen plenty of human Sonics in hoodies. I've also seen plenty of the other approach. It's really up to your preference and the style you're going for. Like, what kind of human Sonic are you aiming for? Something casual and modern, or a futuristic superhero world? So in my case, I went for more of the casual look. I made his clothing light and loose, nice and comfy, and it helps to keep cool and reduce sweat. Like, even running at the speed of sound that's got to be an issue eventually. I did still want his shape to be kind of sleek though, so I didn't make it too loose. I of course stuck to his signature blue for the colours, though I gave some more shades to give some variety. I didn't notice this until now, but his jacket has the same kind of colour scheme I'd expect from a superhero suit, which I think suits Sonic's vibes pretty well. I gave the jacket short sleeves because Sonic's one of the only characters to have skin-coloured arms. A more direct translation would be to make it sleeveless, but that didn't fit with what I was trying to go for with the jacket. Sonic also has this skin-coloured patch on the torso, which is another rare feature for these characters. In terms of direct translation, I could have opened up the jacket, but I don't think he'd want to be running with an open jacket, especially when he's going so fast. Though the jacket does open up when he becomes Super Sonic. I gave him the gloves, of course, but I made them fingerless because humans aren't as good with our hands when they're all covered up. I guess anthropomorphic hedgehogs don't play by those rules. I also made the palms of the gloves blue, just for visuals. And I also added a blue cuff. It gives the gloves some more length, because I generally don't leave more than half of my character's arms uncovered. Just a personal design choice there. So for his legs, I put Sonic in shorts. Now I also added these partial leggings beneath them. I'm a big fan of the shorts and leggings combo, which I think was inspired by Nate from Pokemon Black and White too. I ended up not changing the design of Sonic's shoes at all, aside from removing the gold buckle, which I didn't think fit this design. The shoes are too iconic and I wanted them to stay, since they helped make Sonic more recognisable. Now I do realise that looser, less pointy shoes would be more practical for running. I did also change the style of the socks, mostly because I can't picture a human being, let alone a hyperactive one who loves to run, wearing these socks. And also so I could add a blue stripe to the top of the socks. I just think they're neat. Moving back to the head area, I gave Sonic a pretty sharp open collar to sell that loose casual look. and I also made the decision to give him earbud headphones. I think Sonic would love listening to music on headphones, he's totally a fan of Tony Harnell music. Plus, I figured they serve a practical purpose and protect his ears from the sonic boom when he breaks the sound barrier. Between this and what I said about his choice of clothes, I kind of feel like I'm humanizing Sonic's powers a bit in this AU. I've had the headphones idea since the original 2021 design, but I based them on the kind of headphones that I usually wear myself, which were too chunky and didn't fit Sonic's look. So when I brought them back for the current design, I went for these little earbuds instead, the ones from the 2000s. They'd probably fall out all the time since he runs so fast, but I imagine they have those gel tip things to stay in more securely. Also, while I could have made them wireless earbuds, giving them the wires makes them a cleaner part of his character design, plus I imagine it stops him from losing them. And now we finally make it to the hair. It's got this short, spiky anime look because that's what I like drawing on most of my male characters. I wanted to go for a pointing back look to try and look like Sonic's quills, and I also made his hair slightly long at the back, again to reflect the quills. I don't think that the hair reflects the quills that well, but to be fair, Sonic's actual quill style would be a nightmare to translate with how I draw hair on guys. Oh well. So now that I finished talking about the design stuff, it's time to talk a bit more about the composition. I drew the human designs together with their original counterparts, so you can compare the two and stuff like that, and I figured it'd be fun if they had the same kind of pose. I only ended up matching poses for 2 out of 4 arts in this video though. I referenced poses from official Sonic renders, since I'm not perfect at drawing Sonic characters and wanted some posing references. The pose stuff was fine, though later on I felt that this didn't give enough of Sonic's personality. It didn't really have enough of that cool kid swagger. So after I stopped recording, I did a bunch of editing, I gave him that confident smirk, I changed his hair up a bit, and I tweaked the pose so it's more balanced and weighted. Also, another thing I'd like to mention is that I've kind of rethought the way that I draw ears. I don't know, I've always found it hard to get the long curving line on the inside to look good. And I'd often flip it around arbitrarily, or just not draw it at all. Though for this piece onwards, I took some inspiration from how the Owl House draws ears. I feel like the Owl House and its art style have really helped me feel more comfortable with my own style, and even given me some ideas on how to stylize things. And that's just one reason why it's my favourite animated series, but that's a topic for another video. So then there's the matter of the background. I've pretty much decided that all of my pieces need some kind of backdrop, partly because Twitter sometimes decides to be a pain and put white backgrounds on transparent files. But rather than do a simple gradient or a vague backdrop like I usually do, I decided from the start of this project that I was going to go all in! I picked a location from the Sonic games for each character, which for Sonic had to be Green Hill. Not my favourite zone from Sonic 1, that'd be Starlight Zone, but Green Hill still has a real nice visual design with the checkerboard and all. Plus, I felt the colours were a good contrast for the Sonics. This also gave me a chance to make some stylized water and clouds, and that resulted in a fun excuse to deck out some Krita effect brushes, which I only ever really use for backgrounds. And hey, I really like how the background turned out! I normally draw backgrounds that are more soft and faded so that the more saturated characters stand out more, but with all these backgrounds, I was able to make them just as vibrant as the foreground without distracting from it. That's the magic of referencing backgrounds from games with professional art direction, I guess. So yeah, here's the finished piece. I still really enjoy this design, there's a reason why I've come back to it so many times, but we've got more of these gijinkas to tackle, so let's move right along to the next character of the day. So second up is Miles Tails Prower. Though he doesn't have any tails as a human, so I imagine he just goes by Miles Prower, but I'm going to keep calling him Tails for our convenience. I first drew this design in November of 2021, and I'm sure you're wondering why I went in the direction I did. Well, strap in, because I'm here to explain. Now, Tails is a very interesting character to translate into a human, because a lot of the things about his design, abilities, and backstory all lead back to how he's a fox with 2 tails. Like, he was picked on in the past because having 2 tails isn't normal, but it's because of those tails he's able to fly and go fast. So how did I translate all these elements into a human design? Well, I will start with the personality side of things. Tails is a tech genius, so I figured he'd be able to invent something to help him fly, and that gave me the idea of a backpack mounted with a bunch of propellers. But then I thought, well, Tails' 2 tails are an abnormality and why he got picked on, so I figured I'd need some kind of abnormality for this Tails as well. But like, 2 tails doesn't really have a direct counterpart for humans. I didn't want to give him, like, 3 arms or whatever. And that's when I thought, how about some kind of disability? Like, maybe if he had very weak limbs and he invented a propeller backpack to give him some sort of mobility aid, so he could get around the limitations of a wheelchair or something. Now, I didn't actually base this on any real-world disability, though after doing some research, the closest thing I was able to find was cerebral palsy. It's a motor disability that causes stiff and weak muscles, and it's one example of a disability you might need a wheelchair for. But it can also result in tremors and poor hand coordination, and in some cases causes problems with vision, hearing, speech, even with thinking and reasoning. Though these latter symptoms aren't a guaranteed thing, the symptoms do vary between people. In regards to the hand coordination thing, I imagine the backpack also has these retractable robot arms, and then Tails can use them if his own hands are struggling too much. I'm not entirely sure how Tails controls the propellers and such, but I do often draw him holding the straps, so maybe it's something to do with that? The technology is kind of hard to explain because it's so advanced, and I haven't put too much thought into it. But to be fair, Sonic is a world with sentient robots and 300 IQ super geniuses, so I can just about suspend my disbelief. To answer another question, how does Tails fight a tornado if he's always wearing a backpack? Simple, the pilot seat's built to accommodate for it. Plus with the propellers, he doesn't need an ejector seat, he is the ejector seat. As another note, Cannon Tails can also use his tails for a spin attack, so what's the counterpart for this Tails? Maybe he just has a propeller-powered spin kick? As a side note, not every aspect of these characters' attacks can translate perfectly into these Gijinkas, because for a start, humans can't roll into a ball to spin dash. I imagine Sonic can still homing attack, but it's probably more of a dive kick than a spinning ball rush. But anyway, I think that covers everything I wanted to say about the propeller backpack. I just wanted it to be a fun and clever way to have a human character be able to fly. This is something that Tails invented himself, so I am going to have to figure out different ways for all the other fly-type characters to stay in the air. Silver already has psychic powers, Wave can use extreme gear, Rouge and Charmy could have some sort of flight suits. Not sure what to do with Cream, but we'll get there eventually. Now to get to the actual design, I wanted Tails to wear something casual to match Sonic, though I wanted something a bit less loose. I ended up going for some kind of V-neck with stitching, but I made the sleeves all big and loose to contrast with the skinny arms. I also gave the shirt this double lightning symbol to serve as a reference to Tails' two tails, but also as a callback to the Thunder Shoot from Sonic Heroes. Then I gave him these shorts, which like the sleeves are clearly too big for him. Like with Sonic, I basically gave him his cannon shoes, just with propellers on the back for more mobility. As for the gloves, I took a bit of creative liberty by making the gloves themselves brown to match the backpack's colours, and I kept the white with those oversized cuffs. As for the hair, I knew I wanted to keep the three-pronged tuft that Tails has in canon, though for the rest of the hair, I just made it kind of messy, since I felt that fit with the shape of the tuft. Meanwhile, the back of the hair was shaped to parallel Tails' whisker things. And then the last thing to talk about here is the background. I went with Marble Garden from Sonic 3, which, yeah, a Sonic 2 zone would have been more on brand for Tails, but I was specifically thinking of Marble Garden because of the boss fight of that zone, where Tails carries Sonic as he chases Eggman through the open air. Definitely one of the most standout moments of Sonic 3 for me. Plus, I really like the background of Marble Garden, something I didn't really think about until I actually wanted to draw it. It's got a really nice colour scheme, particularly with the colour of the sky and the clouds, but my favourite part was how the distant forest turned out. The mountains, not so much. I feel like I could have made them fade out more cleanly. But oh well. So yeah, that's the Tails design finished. I rarely ever draw him flying, so I definitely enjoyed getting the chance to show it in this art. So, on to Amy Rose, our third character of the day. She's the first female character we're tackling, which is worth mentioning since unlike the boys, the girls actually wear clothes in Sonic. Given that she already has a canon outfit, in theory I could leave Amy's outfit the same, but where's the fun in that? I first drew Amy in April 2022, and I decided to put my own spin on her design. But before we get to her clothes, how about we start with the pose? Another big thing you can use to portray your character's personality, aside from their outfit, would be the pose you draw them in. Now, Amy here falls somewhere between girly girl and tomboy. I feel she has a lot of traits of both, and I think that this pose does a really good job of reflecting her personality. So that's what I drew my Gijinka in, though I originally intended to use a different pose, which I ended up giving to the Hedgehog Amy. But back to the design, I figured I'd add some more white to break up the red of the dress into sections, just to give it some more visual flair. I ended up drawing heavily from Serena's outfit in Pokemon X and Y. I gave her a sleeveless top with a white ribbon for decoration, and a high-waisted skirt with pleats. It still has the same shape and general colours as Amy's canon clothes, while being something completely different. I think it strikes the right balance of being familiar but also distinct. As usual, I kept her shoes the same, but I gave her these black socks for extra style, which were shorts in the previous iteration of the design, but I thought the socks made a better transition from the legs to the boots. I also kept the same gloves with the bangles, though I added a second pair of longer black gloves underneath them. I feel like I could have just had one pair of long gloves, but then the chunky bangles might not mesh as well. Either way, I wanted to add those black gloves to add a bit more to the arms, since like I said with Sonic, I personally like to have arms with less uncovered space. The last bits of Amy's fashion are a hairband, which I kept from the original design, and a pair of earrings that I just thought were cute and fashionable. I originally made her earrings these light blue crystals, but with this more recent art, I changed them to teal, the same colour I made her eyes, because the light blue stood out a bit too much on its own. Oh yeah, I also changed her eyes from green to teal, I guess because Sonic already has green eyes, or maybe it was a colour picking inconsistency, who knows. For the eyelashes, I once again carried them over from the original design. This is something I didn't do the first time I drew Amy, but I've definitely learned to vary my design since then. With that, all that's left to talk about is the hair. I only loosely translated Amy's quill shape into the human hair. I kept the length consistent, but I took some liberties to make something that was more appealing to me personally. I made the hair more flowy, with these chunky locks that kind of curl slightly. I also gave her these 3 spikes at the top, since it fit the tomboy image in my head, but also to mimic those 3 quills on Amy's forehead. Now for the background, it definitely had to be Twinkle Park. It was Amy's first level in Sonic Adventure, the first mainline game where she was playable, and I also just really love it as a location. Probably my favourite level in Adventure, alongside Speed Highway. Plus, it meant I got to draw a starry night sky, which is an aesthetic that I can't get enough of, as I mentioned with Florges in my last video. And voila! That's Amy Rose complete! This video is almost over, so let's get right on to the final design of the day. So this last design is for Knuckles, and I'll admit, I wasn't too fond of this guy in the past, but I've definitely grown to appreciate him. He was kind of the first rival character in the series, which is something that's become a bit of a recurring trend since then. And hey, it's pretty neat seeing how they made that work in Sonic 3, back when he didn't have as many tools to tell their story. Now when it comes to translating Knuckles to a human, there's quite a few things worth mentioning. His design has quite a bit of black culture tied to it, since his quills kind of look like dreadlocks and all, not to mention his voice in Sonic Movie 2. I've seen quite a few gijinkas go for this direction, and while that's perfectly valid, I wanted to reflect the Echidna tribe's history shown in Sonic Adventure, with Tikal and Pachacamac and all. I was very inspired to give him a design with that same kind of Mesoamerican root. Well actually, when I first drew this design in 2022, I was drawing influence from Native American tribes, which aren't the same, so I guess I'll have to correct that. To ensure I got my facts straight this time, I checked on the wiki and found that the Echidna tribe was inspired by the Mayan civilization specifically. I got up some references of Mayan fashion, and I tried to match the design elements more closely to the outfits I was able to find. It definitely took a while to really translate the design from Native American to Mayan, but before we get to the outfit itself, let's talk about some of the other design features. So I made Knuckles a beefy looking guy because, well, his whole deal is having super strength. I did try to do this with the previous art, but back then I wasn't able to portray that kind of stuff very well. He's one of the only power type characters to not be giant, but I like the contrast of body types between him and Sonic, so I decided to run with it. For his hair, I kept it long and tried to follow the shape of his quills, but I decided I wanted to spike up the top of the hair. When I first drew him, I really just did that for the sake of it, and the spikes had no real structure, but this time I thought, why not shape the spikes to mimic the shape of a Mayan headdress? So yeah, I did just that, and I like how it turned out. To tie it all together, I tried to do some kind of golden headband like the one Tikal wears, but I thought it looked out of place, so I went back to the original design's headband. But I quickly realised that it was too Native American, so I eventually went back to the gold headband. You'll see at the end of the speed paint. I gave Knuckles darker skin than I did with the previous design, so I could sell the Mesoamerican feel more. He also has these red markings on his skin, which are kind of war paint, I guess? I think that's more so a Native American thing, but I like how it looks, so I'm keeping it. For the outfit, he has this kind of capelet thing over the chest, but I made a point of having it not cover his shoulders, so his arms could be on full display. With this redesign, I also added that arc shape on the capelet, the same one that Knuckles has on his chest, to make them more identifiable. The shorts I completely changed the design of compared to last time, so that they look closer to the Mine shorts in my references. I made them less baggy, and put those square sections over the top. I gave the shorts these kind of belt, and I adorned the whole thing with some gold. I also used the same kind of design for his new wrist guards. I didn't change the design of his gloves. They're a variation of his official gloves that are more brown tinted with orange fingers. I kept the spikes on the gloves, of course, because they're another iconic piece of Knuckles' design. I didn't really know what I was doing with the shoes, I couldn't find any good references, and I didn't think Knuckles' shoes were a good fit for this design. I went for these boots with the same colours as the shorts, but I arranged the colour sections to try and match his cannon shoes. As for the background, I of course had to go for the Master Emerald altar. I kind of combined the terrain from his appearance in Sonic Adventure with the sky colour from Sonic and Knuckles. And yeah, that's Knuckles. He ended up being the least reminiscent of the original character, but given the Mayan inspiration, that was bound to happen. But it was still fun to make this design. I might design a second outfit for him that's more casual, for when he's in the city or something, but for now, that's the last of these designs done. So now that I've finished these gijinkas, be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like I said before, I'm kind of seeing these gijinkas as a reflection of how I see these characters, as well as how I design human characters in general. If you want to see more human designs from me, let me know. I'd definitely be happy to make a sequel to this video. Or maybe I can do another series for Kirby gijinkas. And if my channel blows up overnight, I'll definitely make OC videos, but they'll come eventually either way. But anyway, that wraps things up. Like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter and Instagram if you want to see more of my art. I return to the Human Sonic world pretty frequently, but I also draw art for a bunch of other fandoms. Oh, and be sure to share this video with your friends. If we can get this video to 500 views, that'd make me super happy. Stay hopeful, don't give up on your dreams, never forget the real superpower of teamwork, and I'll see you all next time!